boy. Morning. This is Coffee with Grant. I'm Grant. This is Coffee. That is Ruby Dog. Say hello, Ruby Dog. And, just having trouble getting my engine going this morning. You know how you ever have one of those days where you're just like, man, I feel like I slept well. I yeah. Okay. Well, we've had another user suggestion. Yeah, you guys are another viewer suggestion in the comments, which was to talk about software as a subscription versus being paid. Now, I think this is also going to be like me on my old man. Imagine me in a rocking chair on a front porch, being like, back in my day, software was yeah, I don't think a lot of people today, especially if you are, let's say, the youngest generation who is currently about to go to middle school. You know, you're 12-year-olds. You're on the cusp of being a teenager when you're 13. Those people will not remember or have any recollection of software that you purchased, like that you owned, that you had an owned piece of software. So I'm going to do a little bit of a back in the day retrospective, where if I had more time and I cared, I would like put it in black and white and, you know, go down to the rocking chair and do whatever. Anyway, once upon a time, there was not the internet, and so people still had computers and software but no internet, and so they had to have a way to get it from A to B. And the powers that be decided that the best way to sell software to people was to package it up, put it in a literal box with a user manual, and like you would cut it open and open it, and you'd put CDs, or before CDs, you'd put floppy disks in there. And the idea was you would go to a store, a physical brick and mortar store, again, no internet. You would purchase said software for whatever you needed it to do, and then you would go home, install the software on your computer, and for a while we were in like a golden age of purchasing and owning software, because companies hadn't figured out the early DRM, which is digital rights management. And most software would run without the disk in it. So the idea being, you know, and I remember doing this, you could go to the store, buy a video game for your, well, they were computer games then. Buy a computer game. And then if you got bored with it, you could trade it to your friend, who could then play it, and they would put it in their computer and install it, and they'd trade it back to you, etc. and so forth. Or you could have multiple installs on as many computers as you wanted, because there was no limits on installing that software. Once you owned it, once you'd purchased the discs, you could basically do whatever you wanted within the limits of whatever the software was. So that has some pros, and in a world where everything is increasingly expensive, it's starting to look better and better, because the idea was you had something that you needed. Like, I think Adobe software is a great example of this, because it has not only gone to a subscription model, it has gone to a subscription model situated firmly in a tech dystopia. We'll talk about that. But Adobe software is the main creative software that industry professionals use to make. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to make these videos. I used Photoshop back in the day for my photography editing and retouching. I used Lightroom to organize my everybody, you know, for a while got all their favorite computer viruses from trying to download Adobe Flash Player. Yeah, you know. And so Adobe had this, like, we were going to make creative software for industry professionals who are they're the people who are doing professional video editing. They are editing movies, they are editing commercials, they are you know, doing photo marketing and advertising, and they're doing print media, they're printing books, all this stuff. Adobe software is incredibly useful. I'm not arguing that it isn't. But back in the day, what you would do is you would pay an exorbitant amount of money to Adobe, and it would be like $500-$600 for a set of, I mean, like a giant box. I still have one someplace. Giant box of the entire Adobe Creative Suite, and then each programs. Sometimes each program had multiple CDs. You would feed those in one at a time, and it would copy the information off of through your CD drive onto the computer. But then once it was installed, it was yours forever. You could continue to use it for as long as your computer kept going. And I mean, there were like access product keys that they'd built in. But the thing about access product keys is that they're not necessarily specific to your copy. And so your copy of the disk. And so a lot of times you could go online and you could find a old access key, or if you had a copy of Windows laying around and you wanted to install Windows, you could just use the same access key over and over again. Again, we're talking pre-internet. There was no way for it to check in. And so for the Adobe stuff, especially because of its incredible cost up front, you would basically, there was this, I think the cost of Adobe software is really what started people down this road of pirating, decrypting, decoding, and cracking software and getting free versions of it out there for sharing once the internet came around. Because for students, if you're a student and you're not making money with the software, it was incredibly cost prohibitive to buy a $600 something license to an Adobe stuff. And then a lot of schools would have multiple licenses. I'm sure it cost them an arm and a leg to do that. I don't know what the pricing is. I can't imagine what the pricing is now versus what the pricing was when I was an undergrad 20 years ago. But the point being, there were some advantages to that. The advantage is that you can install that software wherever you want to. It will always work, whether or not that company is still in business. That's one of those things I have in the other room. I have a big old box of computer games, and they are from Maxis, among other companies. But some of my favorite initial computer games were from Maxis, which is the company that originally made The Sims, SimCity, SimTower, SimCopter, SimAnt, The Streets of SimCity. All of those are fantastic games. I put hundreds of hours into them. I have all the boxes, I have all the manuals, I have all the discs. They're still in pretty good shape, and they are sitting in a box over there. And if I wanted to, I could install them, not on my computer that's sitting over here off camera, because it's running Windows 11, but I could install them on a computer, and I have, that is running a compatible operating system to the era where they came out. So I can still use them. They are still valuable to me, right? The trade-off is that they can't be updated. If there are bugs in them, or if there were improvements, then I'm kind of out of luck. Or if maybe now that we might find somebody who really cared about those games as much as I did, and they developed a patch or like a freeware mod that you could download to make the games better. But that's a completely different thing. Open source software is like on the other scale of that, where it's like, hey, what if people cared about having a tool that was useful and they shared it with everybody because it raises all boats and we don't have to capitalize everything. So the trade-off is, like, for Adobe right now, they said, oh, okay, we've got this huge problem with people pirating our software, using free copies to make money, and we don't get a cut of it. We spend all this time doing it, blah, 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 not realizing that they just kind of priced themselves out. They had put themselves at such a high price tier that it was kind of a disgusting, compared to other software on the market, right? The Adobe Creative Suite, pretty much, unless you got into like commercial specific bespoke software applications, was the most expensive software on the market, and probably arguably still is for the average person to purchase, right? So it's like, oh, a game costs anywhere between, 75 cents or whatever it is, could be the bottom on sale, to I've seen $100 for collector's editions. I'm glad we're not up to $100 yet for that. And then you get like professional software like tax software or accounting software, and it's all kind of in that range. It's like 70, but a lot of them are going to it's $7.99 a month, it's $10 a month, it's $10 a month per user that you want to have in there. And from an accounting standpoint, from a business standpoint, that makes sense because your business scales and your revenue scales for the amount of usage that you have. and it's implied that you are going to provide free updates. But from a like, can I use this without the internet sense, or do I own the software? We've essentially stamped out this mentality. If the younger generation has never experienced owning software, that's not even going to occur to them that there was a better choice. I think it makes more sense in music. I think probably kiddos are going to be more exposed to tangible music by their millennial parents than they are to tangible media when it comes to computer software. That because like vinyl records are still a thing, and you get the concept of a vinyl record. I think makes perfect sense. It's like, oh, we literally took the sound vibrations of a song, we cut those sound vibrations into grooves in a vinyl record. You could listen to a record with a needle and a thimble with your ear pressed up against it if you wanted to, if you were really careful and you didn't scratch it. But there isn't a like encoding encryption in a vinyl record. You can't they can't DRM protect it so that if you listen to it with the wrong record player, it would break it. It is just the raw sound waves baked into the record, and you own that when you purchase a record, and you can listen to it whenever you want, and it's yours to give away. It's yours to break over your own head if you want to. That is kind of the golden era of media right there. What it represents is this idea that you'd pay for something, somebody would build something that was a tool, digital tools the same as physical tools, or media, etc. And then we get into this dystopian world where we have NFTs. It's like somebody tried to say, oh, well, if music can be streamed and people can pay for access to music, but they don't actually own it, can we do that with art? Can we have people pay for access to art, but they don't actually own the painting, and we'll call it an NFT, and we'll you own it. I mean, technically you own it, but everybody can see it, and it's a whole just give us money. Just turn your brain off and give us money. And turn your brain off and give us money tends to be where we end up. And I'm speaking as somebody who runs a software as a service company, but I don't really do subscriptions. It's not a subscription based whatever. I think there's advantages to both, but I want to talk about what Adobe does now because I think it's important. They have a mandatory, if you are an Adobe customer, you have to use Adobe Cloud Services. Adobe Cloud Services, which I have running on this computer right now, is a program that coordinates the download of all the other Adobe products in the background. If you want Photoshop, you have to download their cloud client first. Their cloud client checks to see if you have an active license, basically that you're paid up, and that you have a limited number of computers that you can install it on, and then it facilitates the installation and uninstallation of the software onto your computer, and it does all the updates, etc. and so forth. It also checks in the background to see if you have any other software it doesn't like, and in the fine print it says, oh, I can brick your computer if I don't like what you're doing. I can cause your computer and the programs that you have running on it to stop in case you happen to be, let's say, installing this on an old Mac and it's old enough where you're running a bootlegged version of, Adobe Creative Suite 6, which is the last version where it wasn't subscription based and you had access to every functionality of every program tucked away in your own hard drive, which you could access offline. I can access it offline. The idea is that if I'm away from online too much, it's going to stop working. But let's say I want to cancel my subscription, right? Right now I'm paying something like $60-something a month just to have access to video editing software, to have Photoshop, to have Illustrator. If I want to go in and cancel my subscription, Adobe does something very, very interesting, I think. Nefarious? Absolutely. Interesting? Also. They will start you on this road of haggling with you. So first of all, it is very difficult to find the place in your account where you can actually cancel, which I find just to be disingenuous. It's like, oh, well, we're just going to make it, if people aren't motivated enough to pull up a Google search and try to figure out what menu they have to click on and how deep in the settings they have to go to find the thing, then they don't deserve to, then we deserve their $60, I guess. Hard to argue that that's ethical business wise, but anyway. And then if you find the I want to cancel my subscription link, it goes, oh, well, why? Why would you possibly want to cancel? Like, what's going on? And you go, oh, no, it's too expensive. I'm not getting my money's worth out of this. I'm not a professional. I do this for a hobby. And they go, oh, well, okay, so you could click here to cancel. Or what if it was $20 a month less? What if it was $45 a month? Would you still cancel? Oh. And if you click on the $45 a month, they go, oh, well, welcome back. You'll be paying $45 a month for like 6 months, and we're going to hope you don't notice when we kick it back up. But you can go, no, I don't. No, I didn't want $45 a month. I want to not pay you guys anymore. And they'll go again. They'll go, wait, hold on now. What if it was $30 a month? Would $30 a month keep you into Adobe? And you're like, no, it wouldn't. I don't want to pay you anymore. And they'll keep doing that until they get to their absolute rock bottom price that they're willing to accept for access to all their software. And so what they've created is this, remember those like coin sorting banks where you'd put a handful of change in and it would spin it around and then all of your coins would just sort into their little respective columns? What they have done is you are the coins in this scenario, and they throw you into this subscription cancellation model, and then you land in whatever pricing they have haggled you down to, and instead of losing you as a customer because they're too expensive, they let the software automate haggling. It is one of the most frustrating things because it just expires whenever it feels like it expires. You don't rely, like, the idea that you would go back in and then, I have to re-haggle for a lower price every single time because they don't get what the hell they're doing. It is some of the most predatory, and I guarantee you they're making money on it, right? But I would challenge at the business level, what is the value of making money versus the value of like having a business name that sows integrity in the marketplace? I don't have another fucking choice for professional video editing software. The convenience is there, and they have creative people over a barrel. I would pirate the latest versions if I could, but they have eliminated that. And if somebody figures out a way to crack it, I would jump ship in a minute. And you know why I would do that? Is because I'm so disgusted. I am so incredibly disgusted by their pricing model. Like, and that's the thing. As a business, they don't realize that they have zero brand loyalty when it comes to that because of how they've behaved. So yeah, they're making money, and then they keep telling me that, hey, we've integrated AI tools, which is a bit disingenuous too, because traditionally, and I remember this, my first iteration of Photoshop, I bet I still have that book someplace. It was the Photoshop Bible. It was a book that's like this thick, it was huge, and it went through tool by tool, step by step, everything that you could do and play with in Photoshop. And I, as a like high schooler, like a freshman in high school, went through that book with a bootleg copy of Photoshop, and I learned everything there was to know about Photoshop because I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun tool. But there's definitely a significant learning curve, and the people who've used it for decades and decades, the idea that you're now going to be like, oh yeah, and also we integrated these AI tools so idiots can use it, and you're like, well, great, sure, oh good. Now that I've spent my career perfecting all of my retouching filters for my style of photography, and you took all that information off the back end, turned it into an AI filter that somebody who is shooting a wedding can use by themselves on their phone and thinks that they're hot shit, and that's just gonna hurt my business is what it's gonna do. You have lowered the cost of entry to professional software use in a way that you didn't think about the consequences. So it's, yeah, I think there's a trade-off. There's got to be a line where the convenience and the updating and the adding new things, and like phone apps are a completely different monster. Like, you don't own a phone app, even if you pay for it. You are at the mercy of like, yeah, what happens if, so let's say I used to work for Apple. I'm a big iPhone, Apple ecosystem guy. You just kind of happen to be. And what happens if Apple goes under? Shit will not work on your phone if Apple just suddenly. So I don't know if you know this, but like I'll pull my phone out as a prop. So every single iPhone, every single device that you have that has your Apple ID on it, which is all of them except for, I think your AirPods. I mean, your AirPods have to be paired to work, so it's like I'm trying to think of a device that Apple makes that doesn't have your Apple ID locked in that might work for something else. I think maybe like the old version Apple Pencil, you know? Anyway, anything that has your Apple ID has to have pinged Apple server within 48 hours. So you want to, because we used to run into this all the time where people's Wi-Fi antennas would break. And you'd go, oh, what's the big deal with the Wi-Fi antenna breaking? Well, it would be broken for more than 48 hours, and then the phone would go, oh, I can't prove that this phone is yours or that you're using it legitimately because it hasn't communicated with Apple's server in 2 days, so I'm going to start shutting critical systems down, and I'm just not going to function. The reality is that your phone would become a brick in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Like if we suddenly lost, and you're like, oh, but that's my calculator and my phone and and my flashlight. I should be able to charge it and use it. Yeah, you would be able to use it for 2 days, and then it would brick itself. And this is the and Apple should do something about that, but they won't because they like the hands-on things about that. But that's the society that we live in, is that we are beholden to the company, and it's kind of a like, you know, like the it's kind of the like a hostage situation, if you will, because similarly the argument is, oh, if you want this software to continue to work, you have to keep paying, and if you don't pay, then it won't. We'll go out of business, and you're all the sunk cost that you've already put in will go under, and that's false. Like there's always going to be a workaround. I'm working on a way to expand my network access server here in the house. And for those of you who don't know about network servers, it's basically a computer without a keyboard, mouse, or monitor that sits on the internet in your local network, and you store programs and run applications off of it. So you can store media and then have that streamed to a TV. You could have it be a liaison for smart home connected stuff. You could also have it run a home security system where you're not paying a monthly subscription to a company that is actively listening to you and trying to sell you stuff with the conversations that you have in your own home. There's a lot of good usage for a network access media server, and there's that I think is, we're seeing a trend right now where we're on the flip side of that, where people realize that software tools can be incredibly valuable, that they have to be reasonably priced, and they have to be administered with integrity. But that's everything from like VLC Media Player, which has been like, it's free. We insist that it's free. We run off of donations. We see the need for a universal media player. We don't want to charge for it. Or Wikipedia. They're like, we're not going to charge for Wikipedia, but for the love of God, we're dying. Every time you log into Wikipedia, it's like, I get it. To the flip side of it, where it's like, oh, no, we are going to, like Zoom is one of those where it's like, no, we're going to charge you a subscription for every little thing. You want a bigger meeting room? It's a increased monthly subscription per user per month. Oh, you want the ability to translate your captions? You want AI summaries? You want XYZ? You want to do you want to do like a whiteboard that people can draw on with their mice and share? Sorry, that's going to be another $10 per person per month. It is this cafeteria style price gouging that scales, and they make all their money off of huge companies. You know, do you think like LinkedIn cares about I was going to say LinkedIn probably doesn't care about Zoom because they probably use Teams because it's a Microsoft product across the board. God bless them. But big companies who make billions of dollars don't care about the software costs that Zoom is doing, and that's where that cafeteria marketing is for. And the problem is that we're going to get to a point where, I think we're there, physically buying a piece of software is just going to be, it's not going to be a thing. You're not going to own any piece of software. Even if you go onto the marketplace and you buy the application, they can still shut it down remotely. They can brick stuff with an update. I mean, I could talk about the golden age of playable media for video games, and streaming and the convenience of streaming basically killed that. I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I don't like buying digital copies of stuff because I feel like I don't own it. I feel like somebody could just shut it down. And I kept buying physical copies of things. I have a physical copy of Cyberpunk 2077 somewhere. So somewhere in my home, there is a 1.0 version release of Cyberpunk, the broken, glitched version of it. And here's the thing. Right now, if I were to go downstairs, put that in the PlayStation, it would take probably 2 days to download a terabyte worth of updates. And because it does them in order for some reason. And it does, oh, here's 1.1. Oh, now is the update to 1.5. And each one of those updates was 110 gigs or something. And I wouldn't be able to play it. So I own the physical media. In theory, I own the disc. That's the transitional stuff. In theory, I own the disc, but I don't own the ability to make it work without the internet, without the company surviving, and without all the stupid patch files. So they basically said, oh, well, we're gonna pantomime selling you physical media, but then it's just not gonna work. It's like we're going to sour the well so that you don't see a value in purchasing discs anymore. And then what that is going to do over a series of years is turn people off to buying physical media when it comes to games. And then eventually we're just going to start selling slightly cheaper game systems without CD drives in them. So there's literally no way to play a CD even if you wanted to. And then, And then what's going to happen is eventually Rockstar released, I was going through my physical media. I have a copy of Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PS3, the PS4, and the PS5. That's how long Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. I remember playing it originally on the PS3. I remember when we jumped to PS4, I was like, oh shit, okay. Big, huge graphics update. This will be fun. They're like, nope, that'll be another $60. I'm like, well, I already played it. I have the disc in front of me. Oh, no, that's a different version. Whatever. And then now we've spent the entire console generation of PS5 on Grand Theft Auto 5 and had to purchase it again if I want to play it. There's nothing stopping software subscriptions from doing that. From just saying, oh, well, I think we've hit market saturation. The number hasn't gone up for a while. And therefore, we're going to sunset that version of the app on your phone that you paid for. You might have paid like $20 for it back in the day. We're going to sunset that version, even though you paid for it and are legally, the App Store says you're supposed to be able to access it for, once you paid, you're supposed to access it. We're going to go, oh, we don't support it anymore. Sorry, that's not an option. If you do anything to it, you uninstall it, you switch to a new phone, it doesn't come over in your backup, it can't re-download, so it's gone, and now you have to pay for the new version. And there's nothing stopping companies from doing that over and over again. Every dollar you spend is a vote cast. So you need to be judicious about where you spend your money and which one of these companies you incentivize. And things like microtransactions in games, like that sort of stuff, it's only going to reassert that predatory software business practices are there. And otherwise, hit the high seas, But we're at half an hour. Have a good day. This has been Coffee with Grant. If you enjoyed this rant and would like to hear others on topics I haven't done yet, throw that topic in the comments. I will get to it whenever the hell I want. Have a good day. Be kind to each other.